Picture this. You're sitting your Edexcel maths paper. You flip to question 7. It's a 6-mark integration by parts question. You revise this. You know you've revised this, but your mind is blank. And it's not because you're stupid, not because you didn't study, but because 3 hours ago you were scrolling through shorts and your brain is still recovering from it. That blank feeling, that's not nerves. That is a measurable cognitive damage. And there is a study of nearly 100,000 people to prove it. In this video, I'm going to show you the actual research on what scrolling does to the brain, why it's dangerous for A-level maths, and how to reverse it before your exam starts in just about 2 weeks. Let me introduce you to Alex. Year 13, predicted A star, always been a strong academic performer. Alex scrolls for about 2 hours a day. Not even that much. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, the normal stuff. But 3 things, unbeknownst to Alex, are happening right now. And Alex can't feel any of them. Every time Alex swipes a new short, there's a tiny hit of dopamine. The next video might be funny, it might be boring. Alex doesn't know. And that unpredictability is the same mechanism that makes slot machines addictive. You keep pulling because you never know when the reward is coming. What this does is now raise the baseline for what your brain considers stimulating. So now Alex sits down with the textbook, opens up differentiation, and guess what? It feels unbearable. Not because differentiation is too hard, because it's too boring compared to what Alex's brain has been trained to expect. So Alex reaches for the phone, not out of laziness, but out of conditioning. Researchers are now calling this dopamine scrolling, and they're flagging it as a public health concern. Because once your baseline is raised, everything below that baseline now feels like pain. Revision feels like pain. Reading feels like pain. Sitting with a hard problem and not immediately getting the answer feels like pain. And your brain will do anything to escape pain, including picking up the phone again. In 2025, a team at Griffith University published a meta-analysis in the Psychological Bulletin. Nearly 100,000 participants, 71 studies, 5 continents. The most comprehensive study ever done on short-form video and the brain. Short-form video use is associated with not only worse attention, worse inhibitory control, but also worse working memory. Now, here's why that combination is a disaster for A-level maths during this exam period. Working memory is what lets you hold multiple steps in your head at once. Chain rule, you need the outer function, the inner function. You need to differentiate them separately. Apply the rule, simplify. That's 4 or 5 things you're juggling simultaneously. If your working memory is compromised, you lose track halfway through. A 3-minute problem now takes 10. Inhibitory control is what stops you from making impulse errors. Cancelling terms you shouldn't cancel. Skipping steps in a show that question. Rushing the algebra because you want it over with. Alex used to catch those errors, but not anymore. In 2023, a team at Ludwig Maximilian University over in Munich, they gave 60 participants a task. And they interrupted them with either TikTok, Twitter, or YouTube. Then they asked them to go back and finish what they were doing. The TikTok group couldn't do it. Their accuracy dropped to barely above random guessing. They couldn't remember what they were supposed to be doing from 10 minutes ago. Twitter, that had no effect. YouTube had no effect. It was specifically the rapid context switching of short-term video. And a separate team replicated the results in 2025. This is exactly what happens when you revise integration by substitution on Monday. You scroll before bed, and by Wednesday it's gone. Not fuzzy, but gone. Because your brain needs actual downtime to move information into long-term memory. Scrolling fills each gap with stimulation, so nothing actually consolidates. Sharp and Spooner in 2025 found that the attention fragmentation doesn't just stop when you put the phone down. Your brain doesn't just snap into deep focus. So Alex's 15-minute scroll break between study blocks isn't neutral. It's poisoning the study session that follows it. If any of this sounds familiar, it's not because you're not smart enough for A-level maths. Anyone can do it, and I genuinely believe that. But what's happening is that scrolling is giving you a handicap. every day. And you don't just feel it in one scroll or one day, but you feel it on results day. Okay, when you hold a grade that doesn't really match what you're capable of. So if we do the maths on this, okay, let's imagine that you spend 2 hours a day scrolling and you've got 6 weeks into your first exam. So that is 42 days. 2 times 42 is 84 hours. Proper Edexcel past paper cycle, time conditions, marking, reviewing every wrong answer, that maybe takes just below 4 hours. 84 divided by 4 is 21 past papers. Now obviously this is very simplistic, and I hate it when people make a big deal of doing maths calculations like this, because obviously everything's different in reality, right? But the principle is still there, right? If you were to redirect that time, okay, not only redirect the time but also avoid the externalities that come from scrolling, such as fatigue and lack of concentration, I bet you could probably do more past papers more productively and let the information sink in better. But by scrolling, that time goes into a feed you won't remember tomorrow. And the Munich study proved it. You will not remember a single reel from today by next week, but you will remember the maths if you do it, because active practice encodes differently into your brain compared to passive consumption. A 2024 study found exactly this link. Students who consumed more shorts didn't just have worse attention, they had lower academic performance, worse grades, and that is directly measured. Alex was predicted an A star. Alex is now trending towards a C, not because the content got harder, but because Alex stopped being able to learn it. And here's what makes this difficult. Alex doesn't think that there's a connection between the two things. Alex thinks it's stress or a bad teacher, or maybe that A-level maths is just harder than GCSE, which it is, but the correlation isn't obvious that scrolling for 2 hours a day results in this, because it doesn't feel like 2 hours. It feels like 10 minutes here and there, a little tiny break, but it adds up over time. Now this all seems dark and gloomy, I get it, but here's the good news. This is not permanent. A 2024 randomized control trial, okay, big fancy word, they took 220 young adults and asked them to limit social media for an hour a day for 3 weeks. Okay, so after 3 weeks, just 3 weeks, apparently they saw significant reductions. Okay, not only in depression, but also in anxiety, and they slept better. 3 weeks, okay, and that's basically between now and your exam season in May. So let's get into some actionable steps here, right? Because it's all well and good for me just to chat on a microphone. I can know everything, but some actionable steps. So the first thing you need to do, guys, is just stop seeing your phone as a break, okay? Now, obviously, you need to use your phone. We're in the 21st century. I get it. And I'm not trying to come at this from an angle like, oh, I'm the best, I do everything the best. No, obviously not. But it does help, at least for me, a mental reframe that I have is I try to use the phone as if I'm in the 1990s. And what that does for me is it basically limits my phone activity to texting, calling. If I need to research something on the web, obviously that's not the 1990s, I get it, but sometimes you need to do that, right? So that sort of thing, as opposed to using your phone as a consumption device. And what that means for you guys is you'll start to see it as, this is just a communication device, nothing more. It's like having a walkie-talkie, right? Do you see people going around playing with walkie-talkies all day? Well, maybe you do. I still do it. I'm 24, but no, I'm joking. But the thing is this. Silence is a break. Relaxing your brain is a break. Taking a walk is a break. Okay? When it comes to your study breaks, think about the externalities that you're getting when you watch watch something that sparks a lot of dopamine, but the externality of that is going to be that your focus is going to be degraded in the next study session. Okay, and I don't know if you've had this, I bet you have, but this used to happen to me a lot. You just get tired because it never really feels that your brain has really had a break in that, say, 10 minutes in between study breaks. So this is where things are looking a bit more hopeful, because once you have a mental reframe of what social media is, which is a time vortex, and what the phone is, which is a communication device, your brain automatically starts to think of it differently. So over time, your dopamine baseline is kind of starved, and so what you need is something to stimulate you. So when you study now, what you'll see is over time you'll be able to study in 2 to 4 hour blocks if you really concentrate, and if you do the right thing of putting your phone in another room, you'll be able to study a lot more consistently. I used to scroll a lot, and once I started to reframe the phone and just think about how much time I was actually spending in my day and what the ROI was of that time, I realized that my focus ceiling, which used to be about half an hour, okay, it used to be half an hour. Now this is during school and early university, okay, but once the scrolling kind of stops, okay, in late university now, and obviously in work, once the scrolling stopped, my ability to focus just went up dramatically, right? It went up to, say now it's about 3 to 4 hours I can do pretty much uninterrupted, simply because there's nothing else for my brain to do. It's just this, I'm focused, that's it. And what you'll notice is that the speed at which you develop skills completely changes. At least that's what I found for myself, because every new challenge was something interesting, and so you're able to learn skills more deeply. Okay, so things that used to take you a month to learn, you can pick up a lot quicker, and as a result, there has a lot more of a fulfilling feeling for not only the focus element, but the kind of self-image, because your self-image starts to change as someone who's wasting time, whereas now your self-image is someone who gets an ROI on that time. You're getting, you feel like a productive person, which is ultimately what we are as humans, right? We need that sense of productivity. But here's the thing, if you delete TikTok and you just stare at a wall all day, you'll reinstall it. Why? Because that gap is not filled. So you need to fill that gap with something else. Okay? So for study breaks, for instance, what's helpful is to walk, let your brain process what you've just studied, listen to an audiobook or something. What I find best is doing something that doesn't require you to look at a screen for an extensive period of time. I think music's fine, but because music, I think the key thing is basically when you're looking at a screen, because you kind of get tired. Okay, but outside of studying, doing long form stuff, obviously audiobooks, podcasts, things where you're not engaging your visual to looking at a screen, I find that helps a bit more. And again, the Munich study as well, they said that the YouTube, I know it sounds a bit funny because obviously I'm creating a YouTube video, so obviously I'm going to be promoting YouTube as safe, which again, it's still social media, so you need to monitor it. Even my videos, just monitor how much you watch if you're getting distracted from studying. But I don't think it's at the same level as, say, TikTok, obviously. Okay, but obviously you need to manage it as well. So, specifically though, according to the Munich study, rapid fire is definitely, a lot more impactful. And obviously I've mentioned this before, but when you study, do past papers. Okay, because active recall is a lot more engaging than passive work, right? And passive work is going to lead you to want to hit. When you want to hit, you're going to go back to your phone. Okay, but by doing past papers, you're engaged and you're studying hard. Okay, and you're rebuilding that working memory. So what happened to Alex? Well, Alex kept scrolling through mock season, through prep, through the final weeks where every hour counted. And on results day, she opened the envelope and it was a C. Not because she wasn't capable. Alex was predicted an A star, but potential means nothing if you give it away one scroll at a time. Okay, that was obviously AI generated, but it's true. But what isn't AI generated is what I'm going to say now. Here's the truth, okay? And it's a little bit deep for an A-level maths video, but it's true. You're going to die one day, and you're going to look back at your time on this earth, and you're going to realize that in order to look at the time on earth, you're going to have to look at the days. In order to look at the days, you're going to have to look at the hours. And when you look at the hours, you got to think to yourself, how much time did I spend scrolling and, diffusing my focus where I could be focusing on something else, something that's going to develop my confidence, my skills, my ability to earn money, my relationships. So the sooner you hone in on that human focus, the sooner you'll be able to see what you're really capable of.